it may not be happen internally. Yeah, I hope you understood about these concepts and functions, right? Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and this notebook is all about more into some kind of declaring of the variable. If you are not familiar with the variables, how to declare it inside a function. So we have two types of the variables, I can say. One is local variable and another one is a global variable. So which we are going to be use something called whenever you declare a variable inside a function. Okay, so inside a function means, let's say I'm declaring this function. If I declare some function inside this a, okay, so a equals to 5, so it will going to be works for this inside this function. I can say this is also a way local variable to this function only. Okay, but whenever you have to write something called to a equal to 9 again, after completion of this function or this statement, I can say this loop, it may not be works with the a is equal to 5, obviously, because it will be only works with this function and the internal operations whatever you want to inside the a, that will only going to be works out, otherwise it may not be happened for the external purpose. So I can say this is a local variable and this is a global variable. So if you want to declare in terms of the main functions, that we can say we can call it as a global. Otherwise, this may not be a local. So let's go into some of the examples so that you will understand much better. Just a second. Yeah. So the purpose is defining the functions means we have to be understood. We have to be used. I can say we have to write one time and to use it later multiple times. Like if you want to having a more number of the values to print, or you want to know about some of the values by default or dynamically you have to give, right? So whenever you encounter something that issue, the functions going to be help us in terms of the iterative purpose also, right? You don't want to write all the code. Let's say custom implementations of the some of the algorithms. So what exactly we are doing here means we just declare the welcome, and this is going to be print just a welcome to the Python course. So every time you want to call it this function, it obviously gives something called this result. Every time you have to call it. So if you want, you can specify some of the variables and I mean arguments or some of the values inside this, like a comma b. If you want to passing those variable values into this, that is also fine. We will going to see that later. So obviously it's having to return something, some uh, here we are just returning the print statement, right? So if you want to return something called 1 or 0 or -1, so that is obviously for our answer. It will also give something called as a return statement to end that execution, obviously. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. So here just want to add the numbers by using this logic, so that how exactly this is going to be help us. So we are declaring this function to help us to understand the print of this 3 plus 4. So how is it total is all about? It's obviously going to be give as a 7, right? So whenever you declare this function, but we are not printing it here. We are to print it by using this function to assign. You have to call it. Otherwise, it may not be happening. It's just going to be run. That's it. It won't give anything here. So yeah, that's all. If you want to, yeah, here we are declaring only, right? But here we're going to give us something called return execution or return statement to give the value of the total. So whenever you run this one only, it's going to be give the value of the 7. Otherwise, this function may not be happen internally because it is not giving any result of the value.